Daniel Whitmore did not come to our divorce hearing because Vanessa Cole had a prenatal ultrasound at 10. His mother announced it in the courthouse hallway loudly enough for the other wives, lawyers, clerks and security guards to hear. As if I were the shameful one for expecting my husband to appear in court for the end of our marriage, I took off my wedding ring, placed it inside the clear evidence envelope beside the bank records and told my attorney, "Proceed." The hallway went quiet in that small, hungry way public places go quiet when strangers realize a private wound has started bleeding in front of them. A woman in a navy suit looked up from her phone. Two older men near the vending machine stopped talking. Even the court officer at the metal detector glanced over. Daniel's mother, Evelyn Whitmore, stood in front of me like she owned the building. She wore a cream suit, pearls, nude heels, and the expression she always used when she wanted me to remember my place. I had seen that expression at family dinners, charity auctions, holidays, and once in my own kitchen, when she told me I should not make Daniel feel guilty for coming home late. "Emily," Evelyn said, "do not embarrass yourself." The old me would have lowered my voice. The old me would have tried to move this conversation into a corner. The old me would have protected the Whitmore name even while the Whitmore family took turns carving mine down to something smaller, but the old me had waited for Daniel for 7 years. This morning I was done waiting. "I am not embarrassed," I said. Evelyn's eyes dropped to the evidence envelope in my hand. The ring caught the fluorescent courthouse light, a narrow platinum band, tasteful, expensive, restrained. Daniel had chosen it because, as he told the jeweler, Emily is not the flashy type. At the time, I smiled. I thought he meant I was elegant. Later, I understood he meant I was manageable. Evelyn leaned closer. "Vanessa had bleeding last week. Daniel is doing the decent thing. Daniel is attending another woman's prenatal appointment during our court-ordered divorce hearing. The mother of his child," Evelyn corrected. The words hit the air like a slap. A few people looked away, others looked harder. Evelyn wanted that. She wanted the hallway to know Daniel had moved on. She wanted everyone to understand I was the barren, bitter wife clinging to a man who now had a baby on the way with someone softer, younger, more publicly useful. I had lived inside that humiliation for months. The first time Vanessa called Daniel during our anniversary dinner, he stepped outside for 20 minutes and returned smelling like rain and guilt. When I asked if everything was all right, he said she was anxious and had nobody else. "Nobody else," I repeated. He looked at me over his wineglass. "Do not be cruel, Emily." The second time I found a prenatal vitamin bottle in the guest bathroom at Briar Lane. Daniel said it belonged to his sister. Claire had never used that bathroom. The third time Vanessa posted a photo from inside a luxury apartment overlooking the river. On the coffee table was my blue cashmere throw. Daniel told me I was imagining things. Then came the bank records. That was when imagination ended. I looked at Evelyn now and saw not a mother defending her son, but a woman defending an investment. Daniel was the heir. Daniel was the family name. Daniel was the one who could fail upward as long as women around him carried the mess in silence. Not this time. My attorney, Nora Bennett, stepped out of the courtroom with a leather file tucked beneath one arm. Nora was small, silver-haired, and precise in a way that made louder people seem messy. Her glasses hung from a chain around her neck. She looked at Evelyn, then at me. "He is not here," Nora asked. "He is at Vanessa's ultrasound. Did he put that in writing?" I turned my phone toward her. Daniel's message was still open. "Vanessa needs me at the appointment. Do not make this ugly. Ask Nora for a continuance. I will come after." Nora read it once. Her mouth did not move. She read it again, then she said, "Good." Evelyn stiffened. "Excuse me." Nora ignored her. "Emily, do you want to proceed?" The question was simple, too simple for everything behind it. Did I want to proceed? I thought of the night Daniel told me I was overreacting about the Harbor Line payments. He stood in the kitchen with his sleeves rolled up, pouring sparkling water into a glass while I held a bank statement that showed 6 monthly transfers from our joint account to a property management company I did not recognize. "Daniel, what is Harborline Residences? A business rental? For whom?" He sighed. "Emily, that is not an answer. It is for a consultant." "What consultant?" He turned then, irritated, not guilty, irritated. "Do not embarrass yourself over money," he said. "It does not suit you." I thought of our bedroom after I moved into the guest room. I thought of the empty space in my closet where my silk robe used to hang. I thought of Daniel's iPad lighting up on the kitchen counter with Vanessa's message, "She still thinks you are at the Denver site," and Daniel's reply, "She believes what she needs to believe." That was the sentence that killed the last loyal part of me. I slid the evidence envelope into Nora's hand. Yes, I said, I want to proceed. Evelyn laughed under her breath. You are making a mistake. I turned to her fully. No, I made the mistake 7 years ago. Today I am correcting it. Her face hardened. The courtroom clerk opened the door and called the case. Carter v. Whitmore. Carter. My maiden name sounded strange in public after years of being Mrs. Whitmore. It also sounded clean, like a window opened after a long winter. We entered the courtroom. Daniel's attorney, Martin Halden, stood near the respondent's table. He was a polished man with a smooth voice and the uneasy eyes of someone who had just realized his client had not told him enough. He approached Nora quickly. We are requesting a continuance. Nora set her files on the table. On what basis? My client has a family medical matter. His mistress's prenatal ultrasound is not a family medical matter for this marriage. Halden's expression tightened. That language is inflammatory. It is accurate. I sat beside Nora and placed my purse on the floor. My hands were steady. That surprised me at first, then I understood why. Fear needs uncertainty. Daniel had finally given me certainty. Judge Margaret Ellis entered the courtroom at 9 exactly. Everyone stood. She was in her late 50s with a calm face and eyes that looked as though they had watched every human excuse wear a different suit. We sat. Judge Ellis looked at the empty chair beside Halden. Counsel, where is Mr. Whitmore? Halden stood. Your Honor, my client is unable to attend this morning due to an urgent medical matter involving an immediate family situation. We respectfully request a continuance. Nora rose. Your Honor, Mr. Whitmore is attending a prenatal ultrasound with Ms. Vanessa Cole, the woman with whom he conducted an affair during the marriage. He texted my client this morning instructing her to request a continuance. A murmur moved through the gallery. Judge Ellis looked over her glasses. Do you have the message? Yes, Your Honor. Nora handed a printed copy to the clerk. Halden said, Your Honor, there is an unborn child involved. My client is under considerable emotional strain. Judge Ellis read the message. Mr. Whitmore was served notice of today's hearing. Nora answered before Halden could. 47 days ago, Your Honor, we have signed acknowledgement of service. He also referenced today's hearing in email correspondence with my client and his counsel. He was further ordered to provide complete financial disclosures 30 days ago and has failed to do so. Judge Ellis turned to Halden. Did your client understand he was expected here today? Halden hesitated. That hesitation cost him. Yes, Your Honor, he said. Judge Ellis looked at me. Mrs. Carter, do you wish to proceed today? I stood. The courtroom felt larger than it had a moment earlier, or maybe I did. Yes, Your Honor. Are you requesting any delay due to Mr. Whitmore's absence? No, Your Honor. Halden turned slightly toward me. Emily, perhaps we should step outside and discuss this. For 7 years, men in Daniel's world had spoken to me like I was a soft surface, a wife, a hostess, a woman who could be persuaded if someone lowered his voice and sounded reasonable. I looked directly at him. You had 47 days to discuss it. Nora's hand rested lightly on the table. She did not smile, but I felt her approval. Judge Ellis made a note. Motion for continuance denied. We will proceed. Behind me, Evelyn inhaled sharply. That sound was the first victory of my day, not because Evelyn was frightened, because she had expected me to fold, and I had not even bent. Nora opened her first folder. Your Honor, we begin with service notice and non-compliance. Daniel's empty chair sat across from me. For years, his absence had been a wound. Today it became evidence. The empty chair became the loudest witness in the room. Daniel had always understood presence as power. When he walked into a restaurant, hosts moved before he reached the podium. When he entered a boardroom, older men with thicker resumes leaned back and listened. When he came home late, tossing his keys into the ceramic bowl I bought in Maine, the whole house seemed to rearrange itself around him. I used to rearrange myself too. I would look up from a book, close my laptop, silence the television, soften my voice, ask if he had eaten. If he was tired, I was quiet. If he was angry, I was patient. If he was affectionate, I forgave him in advance. That was the shape of our marriage by the end. Daniel entered. Emily adjusted. But in court, Daniel's absence did not create space for him. It created consequences. Nora began with proof of notice. Your Honor, Exhibit 1 is the signed acknowledgement of service dated March 3. Mr. Whitmore received notice of today's evidentiary hearing at 9:14 a.m. Exhibit 2 is an email from Mr. Whitmore to Mrs. Carter dated March 4, referencing this hearing and characterizing it as, quote, a waste of everyone's time. Exhibit 3 is a text message from this morning instructing Mrs. Carter to request a continuance because he chose to attend Ms. Cole's prenatal appointment. Judge Ellis reviewed the documents one by one. Halden objected twice, once on relevance and once on tone. Both objections died quickly. Mr. Halden, Judge Ellis said, the court is interested in facts. If the facts are uncomfortable, that is not an evidentiary issue. Nora called me to the stand. I rose and felt Evelyn's eyes on my back. My heels sounded too loud on the wooden floor. I sat, raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth. The oath felt almost gentle. Marriage vows had been larger, prettier, and easier to break. Please state your full name, Nora said. Emily and Carter. The last name steadied me. How long were you married to Mr. Whitmore? 7 years. During the marriage, did you contribute financially to assets now at issue in this proceeding? Yes, Nora approached. With a document. I am handing you what has been marked as Exhibit 7. Do you recognize it? Yes, it is the wire confirmation for $280,000 transferred from my premarital investment account to Whitmore House Development. What was Whitmore House Development? A boutique property division Daniel launched during our second year of marriage. Why did you transfer those funds? Daniel needed capital to secure his first independent renovation project. His father would not release additional money unless Daniel gave up operational control. Daniel asked me to invest quietly so he could keep control and avoid embarrassment. Halden stood. Objection. Speculation as to motive. Nora did not look at him. She is testifying to what Mr. Whitmore told her. Judge Ellis nodded. Overruled. Nora continued. Did you and Mr. Whitmore sign an agreement regarding those funds? Yes. What did the agreement provide? That my investment would either be repaid upon dissolution of marriage with interest or convert into a 5% equity interest in Whitmore House Development. Nora handed the document to the clerk. Exhibit 8, Your Honor, signed by both parties. Halden looked down at his own copy as though it might turn into something else if he stared long enough. Judge Ellis asked, was this agreement included in Mr. Whitmore's financial disclosures? Nora answered, no, Your Honor. Halden cleared his throat. Your Honor, my client disputes the enforceability of that agreement. Judge Ellis looked at him. He can dispute enforceability. He cannot omit the agreement. Halden sat. I kept my eyes on the judge, not Evelyn. If I looked at Evelyn too often, I might remember all the times she smiled at guests and said, Daniel built everything himself, everything, the house I restored, the client dinners I hosted, the investors I softened, the first project I funded. Daniel built everything because I was never supposed to count. Nora placed another record in front of me. Do you recognize Exhibit 9? Yes, it is a copy of the initial project budget for Whitmore House, whose notes appear in the margin. Mine. What did you do for that project besides invest money? I selected finishes, hired 2 vendors, designed the model residence, staged the first investor walkthrough and prepared the client-facing presentation boards. And were you compensated? No. Why not? Daniel said it was for us. The courtroom was quiet. For us. How many women had been paid in those 2 words? For us meant my labor became his reputation. For us meant my money became his leverage. For us meant my silence became his peace. Nora let the words sit before moving on. When did you first learn Mr. Whitmore had not disclosed the full value of Whitmore House Development in this divorce? After my attorney subpoenaed records from the company and retained a forensic accountant. Before then, what had Mr. Whitmore told you? That the division was overleveraged, not liquid, and worth far less than I believed. Did you accept that? For a while. Why? I looked at Daniel's empty chair, because he was my husband, and I wanted to believe there were still some things he would not lie about. Evelyn shifted behind me. Nora's voice softened slightly. What changed? I found an email he printed by mistake. Nora introduced the email. It had been sitting in the shared office printer 3 weeks before I filed for divorce. I had come home early because a client cancelled. The house was empty. I went to print paint elevations and found Daniel's email to his CFO in the tray. Do not send the full Whitmore House breakdown yet. Emily's lawyer is fishing. We will handle after the hearing. At that time, I had not even hired Nora officially. Daniel had anticipated my ignorance before I had decided to end it. Nora read the email aloud. Halden objected to foundation. Nora established the printer, the shared office, the email header, the subpoenaed matching copy from the CFO's account. Piece by piece, she turned my discovery into the court's fact. Judge Ellis's pen moved across her notepad. That sound became music. Then came the bank records. Nora approached with a thick set of statements. Mrs. Carter, do you recognize these accounts? Yes, they include our joint household account, the Briar Lane Home Equity Line, and 2 business accounts connected to Whitmore House. When did you first notice payments to Harborline Residences? In January. What is Harborline Residences? A luxury apartment building. Did you live there? No. Did Mr. Whitmore tell you you owned or rented a unit there? No. Who lived there? Vanessa Cole. Halden Rose. Objection, speculation. Nora lifted another document. We have the lease addendum, building access records, and property manager declaration, Judge Ellis said. Overruled for purposes of this hearing. Nora asked, how much was transferred to Harborline Residences from marital funds? Approximately $96,000 over 8 months. And did you consent to those payments? No. Did you know a Miss Cole was living there while your husband told you the payments were business expenses? No. What did Mr. Whitmore say when you asked? I swallowed. There were sentences that seemed ordinary when first spoken, then later revealed themselves as cages. He said, do not embarrass yourself over money. It does not suit you. The courtroom did not gasp. Real life rarely does. But something changed in the air. I saw a woman in the back row press her lips together. I saw Judge Ellis glance briefly toward Daniel's empty chair. I saw Nora pause, giving the insult time to become evidence of control, not just cruelty. No further questions on this topic for now, Nora said. Halden declined cross-examination at that stage, likely because his client was absent and his documents were incomplete. As I stepped down, my phone buzzed. Daniel, I looked at Nora. She nodded. I opened the message. Where are you in the hearing? Tell Nora to slow down. I am leaving soon. Slow down. Even now, he expected the world to wait for him. I placed the phone face down on the table. Nora leaned toward me and whispered, do not respond. I was not going to. She studied my face for half a second, then she smiled. Good. Daniel used to say I had expensive taste. He said it at dinner parties when guests admired the limestone fireplace at Briar Lane. He said it when clients praised the model suite I designed for Whitmore House. He said it when Evelyn asked why our powder room wallpaper had been hand-painted in England instead of ordered from a catalogue. Emily has expensive taste, Daniel would say, putting one hand at the small of my back. Everyone laughed. Nobody asked who paid in court. Nora made sure they asked. She began with Briar Lane. Mrs. Carter, I would like to discuss the marital residence at 18 Briar Lane. Just hearing the address tightened something inside me. Briar Lane had been the first house I loved as an adult. It was a 1920s stone colonial with arched doorways, original floors, failing pipes, and a garden that had surrendered to weeds. Daniel hated it at first. He called it impractical. He wanted a modern glass house with a wine wall and a heated driveway. I walked through Briar Lane's dusty living room and saw morning light catching on herringbone floors. It just needs someone to care, I told him at the time. I thought I was talking about the house. Nora handed me the original purchase contract, whose name was on the initial offer. Mine. Why? Daniel's credit was tied up in a commercial development loan. I used my premarital funds for the earnest money and down payment. How much? $175,000. Did Mr. Whitmore later appear on the deed? Yes. Why? He asked to be added for estate planning reasons. He said it would prevent legal complications if something happened to me. Nora introduced the email. This is still your house, I just do not want legal headaches if something happens. I remembered receiving that email and feeling loved, protected, chosen. Now I understood that some traps are built out of reasonable language. Nora moved through the renovation records next. $112,000 for structural repairs, $48,000 for custom cabinetry, $26,000 for roof restoration, $17,000 for plasterwork, $39,000 for landscaping. Smaller invoices followed: door hardware, antique sconces, tile, stone, window restoration, paint, rugs, drapery, repairs after a winter pipe burst Daniel forgot to handle while I was in Chicago. How were these renovations paid? Nora asked. From my design income, my premarital savings, and one joint account I contributed to. Did Mr. Whitmore reimburse you? No. Did he ever suggest that these contributions would reduce your ownership interest? No. Did he represent the home publicly as a gift he had provided to you? I looked at the document in my lap. Yes. Where? Interviews, client dinners, family events. What would he say? I took a breath. He said he bought me a house because I saw beauty in broken things. The sentence sounded unbearable in court. For years, I had thought it romantic. Now it sounded like a confession. Nora turned to the judge. Your Honor, Exhibit 19 is a magazine profile of Mr. Whitmore in which he states, quote, "I gave my wife Briar Lane as a canvas." The article omits Mrs. Carter's purchase funds, design labor, and renovation contributions. Halden stood, Your Honor, a lifestyle magazine profile is hardly probative. Judge Ellis looked at Nora. Nora said, "We offer it not to establish title, Your Honor, but to establish the pattern of misrepresentation regarding contribution and ownership, accepted for limited purpose." Judge Ellis said, "Evelyn's phone buzzed behind me, she silenced it too late." Judge Ellis looked toward her and Evelyn lowered her eyes. That alone felt historic. Nora called Samuel Price next. Samuel was a forensic accountant with gray hair, rimless glasses, and the calm exhaustion of a man who had watched too many spouses confuse secrecy with intelligence. He took the stand and explained the tracing report. "Mr. Price," Nora said, "what records did you review? Bank statements, credit records, property filings, wire transfers, business ledgers, email productions, and subpoenaed records from Harborline Residences, Northside Women's Clinic, and 2 corporate entities. What did you conclude regarding the Briar Lane home equity line? That Mr. Whitmore opened or expanded a home equity line secured by 18 Briar Lane and used portions of those funds for expenses unrelated to the residence. Can you identify those expenses?" "Yes, funds moved from the home equity line into a Whitmore House operating account, then into an entity called VC Consulting. From there, payments were made to Harborline Residences, a Mercedes lease account, Northside Women's Clinic, and several retail accounts." "Who owns VC Consulting?" "Vanessa Cole." The courtroom air tightened. Halden tried to interrupt. "Your Honor, there may be legitimate consulting arrangements." Nora lifted a separate document. "The invoices supplied for VC Consulting were created after the subpoena and backdated. Mr. Price can testify to metadata if needed." Judge Ellis looked at Halden. "Do you wish to pursue that objection?" Halden sat down. "No, Your Honor." Samuel explained the metadata anyway: dates created, dates modified, template inconsistencies, invoice numbers out of sequence, payment descriptions changed after the fact. It was not romantic betrayal anymore, it was accounting fraud in a good suit. I looked at Evelyn. Her face had gone pale. Evelyn Whitmore could forgive an affair. In her world, affairs were whether unpleasant, but expected from powerful men. But messy records were different. Messy records threatened reputations, boards, donors, tax lawyers, club memberships, invitations. Nora asked Samuel, "Did you find undisclosed distributions from Whitmore House?" "Yes." "Approximately how much?" "Based on current records, at least $1.3 million in distributions or equivalent." Personal benefits were not disclosed in Mr. Whitmore's initial financial statement. Halden's pen froze. Judge Ellis looked up. "At least?" she asked. Samuel nodded. "We do not yet have full production." Nora let that sit. Then she asked, "Did any internal records reference Mrs. Carter's equity interest?" "Yes, she submitted the first internal valuation. My name appeared in a footnote. Emily Carter, 5% equity conversion pending." I stared at it until the words blurred. "For years Daniel told me I misunderstood, that there was no real ownership, that the agreement was symbolic, that I had wanted to feel involved, that business was complicated and he would explain it when things were calmer. But there it was, my name, not as wife, not as hostess, not as decoration, as equity." A strange grief moved through me, not because I had wanted money more than marriage, because Daniel had known. He had known I had a legal claim, known I had built part of his success, and still looked me in the eye as if I were greedy for asking questions. Nora returned to me after Samuel stepped down. "Mrs. Carter, did Mr. Whitmore ever tell you that internal company records acknowledged your equity interest?" "No." "Did he ever tell you that he had removed or omitted references to your interest in later materials?" "No." "Did he encourage you to rely on him for business explanations?" "Yes." "What would he say?" I looked at the empty chair. "He said, 'You are brilliant with rooms, let me handle the numbers.'" The words sounded almost tender. That was the worst part. Some cages are lined with compliments. Nora nodded. "Mrs. Carter, why are you pursuing these claims?" Halden stood. "Objection, relevance." Judge Ellis said, "Overruled." Briefly, I looked at the judge. "Because for years Daniel told people he gave me everything. While using what I gave him to build a life with someone else, I am not asking for a reward, I am asking for the record to match reality." Nora sat down. No further questions as I returned to the table. My phone buzzed again. Daniel, I opened it because every message mattered now. Emily, I am serious, stop letting Nora turn this into a circus. I am almost there. A circus, that was what he called the truth when other people could hear it. I showed Nora, she took a photo of the message and whispered, keep going. So I did. The first time I found Vanessa's hair in my bathroom, Daniel told me I was imagining things. It was long, honey blonde, and curled around the shower drain in the bathroom I had designed with blue handmade tile. My hair was dark and blunt at my shoulders. Marisol's hair was black. Claire's hair was auburn. Daniel stared at that strand like it was an inconvenience, not evidence. Maybe it is from the cleaning service, he said. Marisol has black hair. He rubbed his face. Emily, I have had a brutal day. That does not answer the question. His voice went cold. Are we really going to do this over a hair? We did not, apparently. He went to bed. I stood barefoot on the tile I paid for and understood something I was not ready to say out loud. Betrayal does not always arrive with lipstick on a collar. Sometimes it arrives as a single strand of hair and a man who expects you to apologize for finding it. In court, Nora called Marisol Vega. Marisol had worked in our home twice a week for 4 years. She was in her late 50s, short, strong, and calm in the way women become calm when life has forced them to survive louder people. Daniel liked her because she kept the house perfect. Evelyn liked her because she was discreet. They both mistook discretion for loyalty to them. Marisol took the oath and sat with her hands folded in her lap. Ms. Vega, Nora said, did you work at 18 Briar Lane during the Carter-Whitmore marriage? Yes. Did you observe Ms. Vanessa Cole at the residence? Yes. How many times? Marisol looked at me once. Her eyes were sorry but her voice was steady. At least 9 times. Behind me, Evelyn made a small, wounded sound. Nora continued, was Mrs. Carter present during those visits? No. Do you recall when these visits occurred? Usually when Mrs. Carter was traveling for work, Boston, Chicago, Denver, sometimes when she was at client meetings. I remembered those trips. Boston, where I staged a hotel lobby for a client who later hired Daniel's company. Chicago, where I spoke on a design panel and spent the evening alone in a hotel room while Daniel said he was at a board dinner. Denver, where I helped Daniel's sister with a foundation event because Evelyn said family showed up for family while I was showing up. Vanessa was walking through my house. Did Ms. Cole appear to be a business guest? Nora asked. No. Why not? Marisol's mouth tightened. She wore Mrs. Carter's robe. She ate breakfast in the kitchen. She used the upstairs bathroom. Mr. Whitmore told me to wash the guest room sheets and not mention it. The word struck a place in me I thought had already gone numb. My robe, my kitchen, my sheets, my house. Nora asked, did Mr. Whitmore ever tell you why not to mention it? He said Mrs. Carter was sensitive and would misunderstand. I almost laughed. Misunderstand, that was Daniel's favorite word for anything I understood too clearly. Nora introduced security footage next. The side gate camera had been my idea after a package theft. Daniel had complained about the installation cost, then forgotten the system existed because he did not manage household details unless they made him look generous. The footage appeared on the courtroom monitor. Vanessa stepping out of Daniel's black car at 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. Daniel moving around the front of the car, placing his hand on her lower back. Vanessa laughing. Vanessa entering through the side gate with a garment bag. The screen changed. Another date. Vanessa leaving the house with one of my canvas totes. Another. Daniel directing 2 movers as they carried a wrapped painting from the dining room. My painting, a charcoal cityscape I had bought after my first major solo design job. I remembered bringing it home in the back of my car, too excited to wait for delivery. Daniel had helped me hang it. He said it made the dining room feel like a real room, not just a beautiful one. Now the screen showed him removing it for her. Nora asked Marisol, did you see personal property removed from 18 Briar Lane? Yes. What items? Artwork, lamps, dining chairs, blankets, dishes, some clothes. Did Mrs. Carter authorize that removal? No. What did Mr. Whitmore say? Marisol looked down then back up. He said Ms. Cole needed the apartment to feel less temporary. Less temporary. The words moved through the courtroom like a blade. So Vanessa needed my art, my linens, my furniture, my husband, and my silence to feel settled. Judge Ellis watched the footage without expression. That made it worse for Daniel. Anger might have given his lawyer something to work with. Calm meant the judge was recording facts. Nora displayed inspection photos from Harborline residences. There were my dining chairs around Vanessa's glass table. my blue cashmere throw across her sofa, my brass reading lamp beside her bed, my framed photograph of the Maine coast above her console. That photograph had been an anniversary gift from Daniel after our 3rd year of marriage. We had spent 3 days on the coast in November, eating chowder, walking in wind, pretending we had not started fighting about children, money, and time. On the last morning, Daniel bought the print from a tiny gallery, for wherever we grow old, he said. Now it hung over Vanessa's rented console table. I did not cry. That surprised people later when they heard the story. They expected tears, they wanted betrayal to look wet and cinematic, but I was past tears. I was taking inventory. Nora asked me to return briefly to the stand. Mrs. Carter, did Mr. Whitmore tell you your personal belongings were moved to Ms. Cole's apartment? No. When you asked about missing items, what did he say? He said I was forgetful. Did he ever express concern about your memory in other contexts? Only when I noticed things he wanted to deny. Halden stood. Objection. Judge Ellis said, sustained. As to the characterization, the answer will be limited to the first sentence. I nodded. Understood. Nora moved on. Did you file a police report regarding the missing items? No. Why not? At the time I was still trying to understand what was happening. Daniel told me involving police would be humiliating for both of us. He said I was emotional. Do you now seek return or compensation for the items? Yes. What items matter most to you? I paused. The truthful answer was not the most expensive. The painting, the Maine photograph, the dining chairs my grandmother left me, the blue throw. Why? Because they were mine before they were used to make another woman comfortable. Nora nodded once. No further questions. As I stepped down, the courtroom doors opened briefly. A clerk entered, then stepped aside. Daniel stood in the doorway. He was breathless, his tie slightly crooked, a hospital visitor sticker still attached to his jacket. Northside Women's Clinic visitor. 10:03 a.m. Everyone saw it. For the first time all day, Daniel was present, and for the first time in our marriage, his arrival changed nothing. Daniel hated being late, not because lateness was disrespectful, but because it meant a room had time to exist without him. He stood at the back of the courtroom, scanning faces, measuring damage. His eyes moved from Judge Ellis to Halden, from Nora to the monitor, from the evidence boxes to me. For 1 second, his gaze caught on the image still frozen on the screen. Vanessa's apartment, my blue throw. His face changed, not with shame, with calculation. The court was in short recess and the clerk stepped forward before Daniel could cross the gate. Sir, court is in recess. You need to wait. I am Daniel Whitmore. The clerk looked at his visitor sticker, then at his face. Yes, you still need to wait. A few people in the gallery lowered their eyes to hide expressions. Daniel was not used to being handled like ordinary inconvenience. He turned to me. Emily, Nora stepped between us. Do not speak to my client directly. Daniel's mouth tightened. This is still my wife. No, I said. This is still your hearing. The words hit him harder than I expected. Evelyn rushed toward him from the gallery, heels clicking against the floor. Daniel, she whispered, though everyone could hear. They have the transfers, they have Marisol, they have the house documents. His eyes snapped to her. Marisol testified. Evelyn nodded. For the first time I saw panic move openly across his face. Daniel had expected bank records, maybe emails, maybe angry testimony from me. He had not expected the quiet woman who folded our towels to become a witness against him. That was Daniel's mistake. He did not notice people he considered background. Marisol had noticed everything. Halden approached quickly. Daniel, we need to speak outside immediately. Daniel ignored him. Emily, what did you do? It was such a Daniel question, not what happened. What did you do? As if consequences were my invention. I looked at the hospital sticker on his jacket. I came to court. His jaw tightened. The clerk called everyone back. We rose as Judge Ellis returned. Daniel moved to sit beside Halden, but Nora stood. Your Honor, before Mr. Whitmore participates further, we request that the court address his late appearance and the pending motion for sanctions related to his non-compliance and failure to appear at the scheduled time. Daniel looked sharply at Nora. Sanctions. Judge Ellis turned to him. Mr. Whitmore. This hearing began at 9. I understand, Your Honor. I apologize. There was a medical situation involving my unborn child. The phrase was polished. He had rehearsed it in the car. Judge Ellis looked at the sticker on his lapel. Were you the patient? Daniel blinked. No, Your Honor. Was Ms. Cole unable to attend an ultrasound without you? He hesitated. The hesitation was small. The damage was not. No, Your Honor, but she was anxious. There had been concerns last week. This court does not schedule evidentiary hearings around emotional preference. Judge Ellis said. Daniel's face darkened. He was used to judges in private clubs, judges as dinner guests, judges as people who shook Richard Whitmore's hand at charity events. He was not used to this judge in this courtroom with this file. Judge Ellis continued, "Your counsel requested a continuance. It was denied. The hearing proceeded. You may participate going forward, but you will not relitigate testimony already received because you chose not to attend." Daniel looked at Halden. Halden looked down. Nora moved immediately to temporary financial restraints. Your Honor, given the evidence presented regarding undisclosed distributions, backdated invoices, and marital funds transferred to MS Cole or entities she controls, we request an immediate order restraining further transfers from disputed accounts, preventing any additional encumbrances on 18 Briar Lane, preserving all Whitmore House records and prohibiting disposal of personal property removed from the marital residence. Daniel stood. Your Honor, that would damage ongoing business operations. Nora turned one page in her folder. The business operations were already damaged when marital assets were routed through them to pay for MS Cole's apartment. That is not what happened, Daniel said. I heard the old tone in his voice, the one that used certainty as a substitute for truth. Judge Ellis said, "Mr. Whitmore, sit down unless you are testifying or your counsel instructs you otherwise." He sat slowly. Nora displayed the flowchart Samuel Price had prepared. It was clean and merciless. Briar Lane Home Equity Line, Whitmore House Operating Account, VC Consulting, Harborline Residences, Mercedes Lease, Northside Women's Clinic, Retail Payments. Every arrow pointed away from me and toward Vanessa. Halden tried to argue that VC Consulting provided legitimate branding support. Nora responded by showing the invoice metadata and the lack of corresponding work product. The court did not need to decide the final issue that day. Nora said it needed to prevent further damage while the final valuation proceeded. Judge Ellis granted the temporary freeze. Daniel's hand closed around his pen. The crack of plastic snapping was audible. Evelyn lowered her head. Nora then introduced the text messages from Daniel's iPad. "Pick whatever you need for the apartment. Emily will not notice half that stuff anyway." The message appeared on the screen. Daniel stared at it. "I remembered the night I found it. I had come downstairs for tea because sleep had become impossible at Briar Lane." Daniel's iPad was on the kitchen island, still connected to his messages. "I was not snooping. That was what I told myself for months. I had been looking for the grocery list." Vanessa's name lit the screen. "She still thinks you are at the Denver site." Then Daniel's answer. "She believes what she needs to believe. I did not confront him that night. I took photos, then I made tea, then I sat in the dark kitchen until sunrise, understanding that heartbreak could be quiet enough not to wake the house." Nora established that the iPad was a shared household device. Daniel had given me the passcode years earlier. The messages were preserved before the device was removed from the house. Halden objected on privacy grounds. Judge Ellis allowed the messages for limited purposes related to property and asset disposition. Daniel leaned toward Halden and whispered harshly. Halden's face remained frozen. By the time the court recessed for lunch, Daniel looked less angry and more cornered. That was when he followed me into the hallway. "Emily, wait," Nora said. "Keep walking." I kept walking. Daniel's voice rose. "You are trying to ruin me." I stopped. The courthouse hallway was full now. People from other cases moved around us. A woman cried near the elevator. A man in a wrinkled shirt argued quietly with his lawyer. A child held a stuffed rabbit and watched me with wide eyes. I turned. "No," I said. "I am finally refusing to finance the life you built while ruining me." Daniel looked at me as if he did not recognize my voice. Maybe he did not. For years I had spoken to him in softened edges, in careful timing, in questions instead of accusations. This voice was mine before marriage trained it out of me. He took a step closer. "We can fix this." "No, you can comply." His eyes flashed. "You are enjoying this. I am surviving it. You could have waited." There it was, the whole morning, the whole marriage. I could have waited. I looked at the hospital sticker still clinging to his jacket. "I did wait," I said, "for 7 years. Then I walked away." This time, he did not follow. Evelyn's invitation arrived by courier that evening. Not text, not email, not a call, a cream envelope. My name written in calligraphy. Delivered to the apartment building where I had lived for exactly 17 days. Emily Carter, not Mrs. Whitmore. That was how I knew Evelyn was angry. Inside was a card on thick paper: family dinner tomorrow 7 o'clock. We need to resolve this privately before you do more damage. No please, no apology. No question, a summons. I sent a photo to Nora. Her response came 1 minute later. Go. I called immediately. Absolutely not, Nora answered with the sound of papers moving in the background. They are desperate. That is not a reason to walk into a room where 6 Whitmores can corner me over roasted salmon. It is if you stop thinking like a daughter-in-law and start thinking like a witness. I looked at the card again. They will try to guilt me. Yes, they will try to scare me, probably. Vanessa will be there, almost certainly. I closed my eyes. Why should I put myself through that? Because desperate people talk, and because you need to see fully what they are asking you to protect. So I went, not because I owed them one more evening, not because I believed in closure. Closure was a word people used when they wanted pain to behave. I went prepared. My phone was charged. Nora knew when I arrived. Claire had texted me separately asking if I was okay. I did not answer because I did not yet know if she was reaching out as herself or as a Whitmore. The family house sat on a hill outside Greenwich, all glass, stone, and inherited confidence. I had attended birthdays there, Christmas Eve dinners, foundation luncheons, engagement brunches, and one Easter brunch where Evelyn corrected my flower arrangement in front of 20 guests. I used to enter through the front door carrying hostess gifts. That night, I carried documents. The dining room was set for 6. Evelyn sat at one end of the table. Richard Whitmore sat at the other, silver-haired and quiet. The kind of man who believed silence made him neutral when it actually made him useful to whoever was loudest. Daniel stood by the sideboard with a drink in his hand. Claire sat halfway down the table, pale and tense. Vanessa arrived 3 minutes after me. She wore a pale blue dress that skimmed her stomach. She was not far along enough to need maternity clothes, but she dressed as if the pregnancy were a public office. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves. Her makeup was delicate. Her eyes were red in a way that looked practiced. Daniel moved to pull out her chair. He had never once pulled out mine in that dining room. I noticed, not because I wanted it, because evidence is not always paper. Evelyn began before the soup. Emily, thank you for coming. I was summoned. Richard's eyes flicked up. Evelyn's smile tightened. We are still family. No, I said. We are currently litigants. Daniel set down his glass. Do you have to talk like Nora now? I have to talk clearly now. Vanessa placed a hand on her stomach. I hope we can keep this calm. Stress is not good for the baby. I looked at her. Then Daniel should stop creating stressful legal exposure. Her mouth parted. Evelyn's voice sharpened. There is no need to attack Vanessa. I have not attacked her. You mentioned legal exposure. That is not an attack, that is a category. Claire looked down quickly, but not before I saw her almost smile. Dinner arrived. No one ate much. Richard tried next. Emily caught. Proceedings can become destructive. You know how quickly reputations can be harmed. Yes, I said. Mine was harmed for months while Daniel told people I was unstable. Daniel said. I never used that word. No, you said emotional, sensitive, confused, bitter, vindictive. You are right, you had variety. Vanessa whispered. Daniel told me you had been separated emotionally for a long time. I turned to her. Did he tell you that while using my home equity line to pay your rent? Her face flushed. Daniel snapped. Emily. I looked at him. Daniel. The table went silent. For years, his tone had been enough to make me stop. That night, it just identified the pressure point. Evelyn put down her spoon. Let us be practical. There is going to be a child. That child is innocent. Yes, I said, the child is innocent. Vanessa's expression softened, as if she expected that sentence to become surrender. I continued, which is why the adults should stop using the child as a shield for financial misconduct. Vanessa's softness vanished. Evelyn leaned forward. You want Daniel punished. I want records produced. You want money. I want repayment, ownership recognition, and return of property. You are being vindictive. I reached into my bag and placed a folder beside my plate. Daniel stared at it. What is that? Copies. Evelyn's expression changed. She recognized danger. It was probably the only thing we had in common. I opened the folder and removed the first email. It was from Evelyn to Daniel. Do not move too quickly on the divorce. If Emily realizes how much of the Briar Lane money is tied to the company, she will dig. Keep her emotional. Emotional women make bad legal decisions. Richard slowly lifted his head. Claire whispered, Mom. Evelyn's face went white, then hard. Private family correspondence. No, I said. Discovery. Daniel reached for the paper. I let him take it. Watching him read his mother's strategy in my hands was almost worth the dinner. Evelyn recovered. I was protecting my son. You were helping him manipulate his wife. I did no such thing. I placed the second email on the table. This one was from Evelyn to the family accountant. Delay any non-essential statements until Daniel's situation is resolved. Emily does not need every internal document. Richard took that one himself. His jaw tightened as he read. Evelyn turned to him. Richard, do not look at me like that. I was trying to prevent unnecessary escalation. No, I said, you were trying to prevent disclosure. Daniel stood. Enough. I looked up at him. Sit down. His eyes widened. No one spoke. Daniel did not sit, but he did not move closer either. Vanessa stood, one hand on her chair. I should not be here. You should, I said. Some of the transfers went through your LLC. Her face changed so fast that even Daniel saw it. Fear. Not guilt, not outrage, fear that mattered. Daniel turned toward her. Vanessa. She pressed a hand to her stomach. I do not feel well. Evelyn rose. This is exactly what I meant, Emily. You are endangering a pregnant woman. No, I said, standing. I am endangering a lie. I gathered my folder. Daniel's voice dropped. If you keep going, you will make enemies you cannot handle. I paused, then I took out my phone and tapped the screen. Could you repeat that? His face went still. I had not been recording the dinner. In our state, consent rules were complicated enough that Nora had told me not to play games, but Daniel did not know whether I had been recording. That uncertainty did more than a recording ever could. Evelyn said sharply. Daniel, say nothing. For once he listened. I slid the folder back into my bag. Good night. Claire followed me to the foyer. Emily, she whispered. I stopped by the front door. Her hands were clenched. I know where Daniel keeps the old company records. My heartbeat changed. Claire, I should have said something sooner. Yes, I said. She flinched. I did not apologize. Women like us had apologized enough. Then I gave her Nora's card. If you are ready, call her. As I walked to my car, I looked back once, through the dining room windows. I saw Daniel standing alone beside the table while Vanessa cried into Evelyn's arms. For the first time, no one was comforting him. Claire came to Nora's office the next morning with a cardboard banker box and no makeup. That was how I knew she was serious. Whitmore women did not appear in public unpolished unless something inside had cracked beyond repair. Claire's hair was pulled back with a plain elastic. Her eyes were swollen. She wore jeans, a grey sweater, and the expression of someone who had spent the night deciding which version of herself she could still live with. I am sorry, she said before she sat. Nora did not soften. For what specifically? Claire blinked. I liked Nora for that. She did not let apology become a fog. Claire looked at me. For believing Daniel, for assuming you were angry because you were hurt. Not because you were right, for letting Mom talk about you like you were unstable. I sat across from her. Thank you. I said. It was not forgiveness, it was acknowledgement. Claire placed the box on the table. Daniel keeps older records in a side cabinet at the office. He thinks nobody looks there because everything is supposed to be digital now, but Dad still asks for paper copies of major internal valuations. Nora opened the box. Inside were files labeled by project year, financing round, internal valuation, investor package, and one thin folder marked Briar. My throat tightened. Nora pulled the Briar folder first. There it was again, the agreement, the internal acknowledgement, a valuation page listing my 5% equity conversion, a later version of the same page with my name removed. Nora looked at Claire. Can you authenticate where these came from? Yes. Do you understand that your family may retaliate? Claire gave a small, humorless laugh. My family has been retaliating against honesty my whole life. At least this time I will deserve it. I looked at her differently then, not as Daniel's sister, not as Evelyn's daughter, as another woman in that house who had learned survival through silence. Nora sorted the documents into piles. This helps, she said. A lot. Claire looked at me. He told us your investment was symbolic. Of course he did. He said you wanted to feel included. I wanted repayment terms in writing because my father taught me never to put money into a business without paper. Claire's mouth trembled. That sounds like you. It did. That was one of the strangest pains of divorce. Discovering the self you abandoned had been wiser than the self trying to be loved. The prenatal lie cracked later that day. It started with Lucas Wren. Nora put the call on speaker after confirming he consented to speak. He sounded irritated before anyone asked him a question. I do not want to be dragged into rich people's divorce drama, he said. Nora's tone remained pleasant. Then answer truthfully and briefly. A pause. Fine. Lucas had dated Vanessa before Daniel reappeared. He owned a small event production company and had done contract work for Whitmore Development once, which was How Nora found his connection to VC Consulting, Mr. Wren, Nora said. Did Ms. Cole discuss Daniel Whitmore's financial situation with you? Yes. When, last fall October, Daniel had told me his affair started in December. I wrote that down. What did she say? Nora asked. Lucas exhaled. She said Daniel was her way out, her words, not mine. Out of what? Debt, bad leases, me apparently. Did she mention Mrs. Carter? Not by name. She said he had a wife tied up in the company somehow, but he could handle her. My pen stopped moving. He could handle her. That was Daniel's marriage philosophy in 4 words. Nora continued. Did Ms. Cole tell you she was pregnant? Later. Did she state that Mr. Whitmore was the father? Another pause. She said probably. The word landed softly then expanded. Probably. Nora did not look at me, but I felt the shift in the room. Claire did too. Her eyes widened. Did she indicate there was another possible father? Nora asked. I am not saying it is me. No one asked that. Lucas muttered something under his breath, then he said, she asked if I remembered Newport. Nora's pen moved. When was Newport? Weekend before Thanksgiving. I remembered Thanksgiving. Daniel arrived at his parents' house late, kissed my cheek in the foyer, and told Evelyn traffic had been terrible. Vanessa had probably been at Newport, maybe Lucas too. I waited for rage. It came, but not the way I expected. It was not jealousy, it was disgust at the architecture of the lie. Daniel had used the pregnancy as moral superiority, as though biology had washed his betrayal clean. Vanessa had used uncertainty as leverage, letting him believe what served her best. Evelyn had used the baby as a weapon against me. An unborn child had been turned into a shield for adult greed. Nora ended the call after confirming Lucas would provide a written statement and respond to subpoena if required. When the line went dead, she turned to me. We are not making paternity our main argument. I know, Emily, I know, I repeated. The baby is not my case, the money is. Nora studied me carefully. Good, Claire whispered. Does Daniel know? I do not know, Nora said. And unless the financial issues require it, we do not need to know either. That discipline saved me. It would have been easy to chase humiliation, easy to become the bitter wife Daniel wanted the court to see, easy to drag Vanessa's body, pregnancy, and sex life into the center of the room, but that would have made Daniel's choices smaller. I would not give him that. He stole from me, he lied to the court, he hid assets, he used my home to fund another woman's life. That was enough. That evening, I went to Northside Women's Clinic to retrieve my Volvo. Daniel had taken the Range Rover after I moved out, claiming it was safer for Vanessa. My older Volvo had been left in the clinic lot for 2 days. It was still titled to me, and Nora told me to collect it before Daniel found a reason to make it disappear. I arrived near dusk. The clinic was a low brick building with soft lighting and privacy hedges. As I crossed the parking lot, I heard Vanessa's voice. You said you had this under control. I stopped behind a concrete pillar. Daniel stood near the entrance with her. He looked tired. Vanessa looked furious. I did, he said. No, Daniel, my rent bounced. It is temporary. My rent bounced. I will fix it. How? Your accounts are frozen. Your lawyer looks like he wants to fake his own death. Despite myself, I almost laughed. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Keep your voice down. No, you told me she would fold. You said she was too emotional to fight properly. My hands went cold. Daniel said nothing. Vanessa stepped closer. And Lucas called me. Daniel froze. Why did Lucas call you? He got some legal notice. Why would Lucas be involved? Vanessa did not answer quickly enough. Daniel's face changed. I pressed the unlock button on my Volvo. The beep cut through the parking lot. They turned. For 1 perfect second, all 3 of us stood in the open wreckage of their conversation. Vanessa recovered first. Were you spying on us? No, I said. I was reclaiming my car. Daniel walked toward me. Emily. I opened the driver's door. He saw the boxes in the back seat, clothes, files, samples, my apartment parking tag, proof that I had made a life he had not authorized. We need to talk, he said. No, you need to answer discovery. His eyes searched my face. What did Lucas say? I got in the car. Ask Vanessa. Then I closed the door. Daniel stood there as I started the engine. Vanessa called his name, sharp and frightened. He did not turn toward her immediately. In the rearview mirror, I saw the first crack between them. I drove away before I could enjoy it too much. The first thing I cancelled was the card. Not the marriage, not the memories, not the hope. Those had already cancelled themselves slowly. Then all at once, the card was practical, a black joint credit card with a limit. Daniel treated like oxygen, and I treated like a monthly wound. It paid for Investor dinners I arranged but did not attend, flowers I never received, hotel rooms labeled client hospitality, and once a cashmere coat in Vanessa's size that Daniel told me was for Evelyn. The bank representative spoke carefully. Mrs. Carter, removing Mr. Whitmore as an authorized user may interrupt recurring charges. I understand. Some merchants may contact him. I understand. Are you sure you want to proceed? I looked at the statement on my laptop. Harborline grocery delivery Northside. Valet parking, a restaurant Daniel once told me was too loud for our anniversary. Yes, I said, proceed. The second thing I cancelled was the household management account. That one felt stranger. For 7 years, I had been the invisible operating system of Daniel's life. I scheduled his dental cleanings. I sent flowers to his mother. I remembered his father's medication allergies. I bought gifts for employees' babies. I approved menus for investor dinners. I sent condolence notes to clients whose names Daniel barely remembered. I kept a spreadsheet of seating preferences, dietary restrictions, birthdays, grudges, favorite wines, and which board member's wife refused to sit beside which former board member's wife. Daniel called it being organized. Evelyn called it being a good wife. I now called it unpaid labor used to polish a man who could not manage his own calendar. I removed Daniel from the shared household app at 10:13 a.m. At 10:27 he called. I let it ring. At 10:29 he texted, "Why did my dinner with the Hobbs group disappear?" At 10:31 Emily, "This is childish." At 10:34, "Where is the RSVP list?" At 10:41, "You are hurting innocent people." I wondered who he meant. The investors who would be served the wrong wine. Evelyn, whose dermatology appointment I no longer confirmed. Vanessa, whose rent had bounced. Himself, discovering that competence had been sleeping beside him for 7 years and had now changed the locks. I forwarded everything to Nora. Then I returned to my design proposal. The client was a boutique hotel in Providence. My client, my scope, my invoice, my name. By Thursday evening, the Hobbs dinner had become a slow-motion disaster. I attended anyway, not as Daniel's wife, as Lydia Hobbs's guest. Lydia was 70, rich, observant, and allergic to fools. I had redesigned her Cape House 3 years earlier. She liked me because I told her the truth about her terrible chandelier. Daniel liked her because she knew everyone worth knowing. When she saw me at the hotel ballroom entrance, she kissed both my cheeks. "You look lighter," she said. "I lost a husband, a heavy object," she replied. I laughed for the first time that week. Inside, the ballroom glittered with low chandeliers and quiet panic. I saw the mistakes immediately. Mrs. Estia was seated beside her ex-husband, Mr. Carmichael, who had a shellfish allergy, was served crab canapes. The vegetarian investor had been given beef. The printed programs used an old foundation logo. Vanessa stood near the front in emerald satin, one hand on her stomach, looking beautiful and completely useless. Evelyn moved through the room with a smile so tense it could cut glass. Daniel spotted me from across the ballroom. Relief crossed his face. That hurt in a new way, not because he missed me, because he saw me and thought help had arrived. He crossed the room quickly. "You came. I was invited. I need the revised seating chart. I do not have it." His smile froze. "Emily." I looked past him at Vanessa, who was trying to explain to Mrs. Estia why her ex-husband was at her table. "You should ask Vanessa. She seems eager to take my place." His eyes flashed. "This is not the time. That is what you said about court." A waiter paused beside us, then wisely moved away. Daniel lowered his voice. "Do you want me to look incompetent?" I stopped managing how you look. The words landed. He stared at me, and for a moment I saw true confusion, not anger. Confusion. Daniel had believed my support was a natural resource, like sunlight, like gravity. It had never occurred to him that I could turn it off. Vanessa appeared at his side. "Daniel, Mrs. Estia is upset." "Why?" he snapped. "Because you seated her with her ex-husband." "I did not seat anyone." I smiled. "Exactly." Vanessa's eyes cut to me. "You could help instead of enjoying this." "I could," I said, "but I will not." Daniel grabbed my elbow, not hard enough to bruise, hard enough to remind me he thought my body still answered to his urgency. The room did not stop, but the people near us noticed. Lydia Hobbs noticed, Mr. Carmichael noticed, Evelyn noticed. I looked down at his hand. "Let go." He released me. I stepped back. "Do not touch me again." His face reddened. "You are making a scene." "No," I said. "You are." Lydia appeared beside me like a beautifully dressed blade. "Daniel dear," she said, "Mr. Carmichael is asking whether the quarterly distribution numbers are still accurate." Daniel's face changed. Distributions had become a dangerous word. he left immediately. Vanessa stayed. For the first time, we stood alone in public without Daniel or Evelyn filling the space between us. She looked me over. You must enjoy humiliating him. No, I said, humiliation is what he did to himself. I am just no longer cleaning it up. He loves me. That is not a legal defense. Her hand moved to her stomach. You have no idea what it is like to protect a child. I kept my voice low. Do not use that baby as a receipt for my money. The softness dropped from her face. You had 7 years, she said. Maybe if you had given him a family, he would not have needed one elsewhere. The words hit the one place I had not armored. Daniel and I had tried for a baby for almost 2 years, quietly, privately. Then I miscarried at 10 weeks in a hotel bathroom during a foundation weekend in Boston. Daniel was downstairs at a donor dinner. I called him 4 times before he answered. He held me later that night. He cried, then he never mentioned it again. I had not told Evelyn, I had not told Vanessa, so Daniel had. I set down my glass before my hand could shake. Did repeating that make you feel chosen? I asked. Vanessa blinked. I stepped closer. Because it makes you sound like a woman wearing someone else's cruelty and mistaking it for jewelry. Her face went white. I left before she could answer. In the ladies' room, I locked myself in a stall and gripped the door until the wave passed. I did not cry because Vanessa deserved tears. I cried because I had once lain on a bathroom floor bleeding and still worried Daniel would be embarrassed if anyone found out. That woman deserved tears. When I returned to the ballroom, Daniel was looking for me. I walked past him and left. That night, in my apartment, I opened the final audit authorization and signed it. No more wife work, no more emotional accounting, no more helping Daniel look like a man worth trusting. Daniel came to my apartment in the rain. He should not have known where I lived. That was my first thought when I looked through the peephole and saw him standing under the weak hallway light, wet hair pushed back, coat dark with rain, jaw tight with the kind of desperation he would later call concern. My second thought was simpler. Of course he knew. Men like Daniel called it concern when they crossed boundaries and harassment when women documented it. I did not open the door at first. Emily, he said, I know you are there. I stood barefoot on the other side, phone in my hand. Leave. We need to talk. No, without lawyers, especially no. He exhaled. I could hear the effort he made to control his voice. Please. That word stopped me, not because it softened me, because Daniel rarely used please unless he needed something badly enough to wear humility like a borrowed coat. 10 minutes, he said. That is all. I considered calling Nora. Then I imagined Daniel telling a judge he came to resolve things privately and I refused to communicate. Reasonable men love creating unreasonable women, so I opened the door with the chain still on. Daniel looked past me into the apartment. It was small, 1 bedroom, white walls, a narrow kitchen, boxes stacked near the sofa, fabric samples on the table. A thrift lamp with a crooked shade, nothing like Briar Lane. His face shifted. You are living here? Yes. You could have stayed at the house. You moved another woman into my marriage. I needed a room without her shadow in it. That is dramatic. It is accurate. He looked tired, really tired. There were shadows under his eyes, and his suit looked less perfect than usual. Some part of me recognized him as the man who once fell asleep with his head in my lap while I read contract notes, the man who danced with me in our unfinished kitchen before the floors were sealed, the man who cried when I miscarried. That recognition was dangerous. I kept the chain on. Daniel said, Halden thinks we should settle. I am sure Halden thinks many things after discovering your evidence management style. His mouth tightened. I am prepared to make an offer. There it was, not an apology, an offer. 2 million, he said. Cash settlement. You keep your design business. We sell Briar Lane and split proceeds after debt. You drop any claim to Whitmore House equity and stop pursuing Vanessa's records. He said it like generosity. I stared at him. Daniel, you owe me more than that on the equity agreement alone. The agreement is disputed. It was acknowledged in your internal valuation. His face went still. Claire's box had found its target. Where did you get that? Discovery. From Claire. I said nothing. His eyes sharpened. You dragged my sister into this. No, your lies did. He looked down the hallway. Then back at me. My family has been good to you. No, your family has been expensive. Emily, you keep saying my name like it is a leash. Pain crossed his face. Then it looked real. I hated that I could still tell. I made mistakes. He said mistakes. A missed exit was a mistake. A forgotten birthday was a mistake. A year of hiding transfers, moving another woman through my home, using my property to furnish her apartment, missing court for her ultrasound and weaponizing my miscarriage through her Mouth was not a mistake, it was a pattern. Say what you did, I said. He blinked. What, you want a private conversation? Say what you did. I had an affair, and, he swallowed, I used marital funds in ways I should not have. No, his jaw tightened. Emily, say it clearly. I used marital funds for Vanessa, and, I hid business distributions, and, he looked away. I waited. Rain tapped against the hallway window at the far end. Somewhere downstairs a dog barked. My phone recorded from my hand. Screen dark. Daniel finally said, I let you think you were confused when you were right. That one hurt because it was the first sentence that sounded true. My throat tightened, but I did not move. Why? I asked. He laughed once without humor. Because if you were right, I was the villain. No, I said. Because if I was right, I could leave. He looked at me. Then there it was, the thing under all of it. Control, not love, not confusion, not a man torn between two women. Control. He stepped closer to the chained door. I did love you, I know. Relief flickered in his eyes. I let it live for half a second, then I said, that is why I stayed too long. His relief died. I am not your enemy, he said. You threatened me last night. I was angry. That is not a legal category that helps you. He closed his eyes briefly. If you keep going, the company takes a hit, the board will get involved, my father will step in, people could lose jobs. You should have considered them before backdating invoices. You do not understand the scale. I understand scale very well. I spent 7 years making your life look stable. For a moment he said nothing, then he said quietly, Vanessa lied about Lucas. I felt nothing for him, which told me something important. That is between you and Vanessa. She may have lied about more. That is also between you and Vanessa. He looked almost offended. You do not care. I care about the court order. I care about my house. I care about my money. I care about my peace. I do not care whether the woman you chose lied to you after you lied to me. His face crumpled for a second, then pride repaired it. So that is it. Yes, 7 years and you can just close the door. I looked at the chain between us. No, Daniel, you closed it every time you thought I would wait on the other side. Then I shut the door. He knocked once. Emily. I rested my forehead against the wood. For a dangerous second, memory lifted its head. Daniel laughing in the kitchen. Daniel carrying me over the Briar Lane threshold. Daniel whispering, we will be okay. After the miscarriage, then I remembered Vanessa in my robe. I stepped back. Leave, or I call building security. Silence, then footsteps. The elevator opened and closed. I saved the recording. The next morning, Nora filed the expanded motion. Vanessa Cole and VC Consulting were formally identified as third-party recipients of disputed marital funds. The court was asked to compel production of her relevant financial records. The Whitmore House equity claim was updated with the internal valuation Claire provided. The court was also notified of Daniel's attempted private settlement pressure and his threatening text. Do not make me your enemy tomorrow. Threats, Nora had said, were evidence too. The final hearing was set for Monday. On Sunday night I slept better than I had in months, not peacefully but without waiting for footsteps. The second hearing began like the first. Daniel's chair was empty. This time nobody pretended not to notice. Halden looked like a man who had aged 5 years in 9 days. He stood at the respondent's table with 2 binders, a legal pad, and the expression of an attorney who had advised his client not to do exactly what his client was currently doing. Richard Whitmore sat in the gallery. Evelyn did not. Claire sat 3 rows behind me, hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked pale but steady. Vanessa was absent. Her attorney had filed a limited appearance to object to the subpoena of VC Consulting records but had not appeared in person. At 8:57 a.m. Nora's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then at me. Daniel, I asked. She nodded and showed me the screen. Medical emergency with Vanessa, requesting delay, will arrive as soon as possible. I read the message twice. Then I laughed, not loudly, not happily, just enough for the absurdity to leave my body. He thinks this still works, I said. Nora placed the phone on the table. Then we will educate him again. Judge Ellis entered at 9. All rise, all sit, all breathe. Halden stood immediately. Your Honor, my client has encountered an urgent medical development involving Ms. Cole's pregnancy. He respectfully requests a brief delay. Judge Ellis looked at him for several seconds. Is Mr. Whitmore hospitalized? No, Your Honor. Is Ms. Cole a party to this divorce? Not directly, Your Honor, though certain matters involving her have been raised. Was Mr. Whitmore warned at the prior hearing that his personal scheduling choices would not delay proceedings? Halden swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. Request denied. No drama, no speech, just a door closing. Nora began with the complete timeline. That was important. She had told me juries love emotion. But judges love sequence. Even without a jury, a clean sequence could do what outrage could not. Date of marriage, Briar Lane purchase, my down payment, Daniel added to deed. Whitmore House investment, signed equity agreement, first internal valuation acknowledging my 5%, later valuation omitting my name, home equity line expanded, transfers begin, Vanessa moves into Harbour Line, personal property removed from Briar Lane, backdated invoices created, financial disclosures served incomplete, court notice served, Daniel misses first hearing, temporary freeze granted, Daniel attempts private settlement, threat text, second hearing, Daniel absent again. Each point had a document, each document had a tab, each tab had a number, no shouting, no tears, just structure. Samuel Price testified again, this time. His conclusions were sharper because he had the Claire documents and additional bank returns. Mr. Price, Nora asked, based on the expanded records, did you identify a value for Mrs. Carter's 5% interest, subject to final valuation? Preliminary estimates place the interest between $870,000 and $1.2 million. Halden objected to speculative valuation. Judge Ellis allowed it for temporary findings only. My hands stayed folded, but inside my body something shook loose. Daniel had offered me $2 million to walk away from. Everything. He knew, of course he knew. He had not been guessing. He had been discounting the price of my exhaustion. Nora asked, did you identify additional transfers to VC Consulting? Yes, including 2 payments characterized as brand strategy retainers, totaling $140,000. Did you find work product corresponding to those retainers? No. Did you identify payments to Northside Women's Clinic? Yes. From what source? Funds traceable to the Briar Lane home. Equity line and undisclosed Whitmore House distributions. Halden stood. Your Honor, medical payments for an unborn child should not be characterized prejudicially. Nora replied, we are not disputing medical care, we are identifying the source of payments. Judge Ellis nodded, overruled. Claire testified next. Her voice shook when she took the oath, but she did not look away. Nora asked, Ms. Whitmore, did your brother discuss Mrs. Carter's equity interest with family members? Yes. What did he say? Claire looked at Daniel's empty chair. He said if Emily ever understood what her 5% was worth, she would stop being reasonable. A quiet sound moved through the gallery. Nora asked, what did you understand him to mean? That he preferred she not know. Did you believe Mrs. Carter was unreasonable? Claire looked at me. No, I believed she was uninformed. Uninformed, the word entered me cleanly, not stupid, not greedy, not hysterical, kept in the dark. That was the marriage Daniel wanted, a wife with taste, patience, and no flashlight. Nora's closing argument lasted less than 15 minutes. She stood with no dramatic gestures, no raised voice. This matter is not about punishing infidelity, she said. This court is not being asked to decide whether Mr. Whitmore was a good husband. The record answers a different question. Did he comply with financial disclosure obligations? Did he preserve marital assets? Did he honor agreements he signed? Did he refrain from transferring marital resources for the benefit of a third party without consent? She paused. The evidence shows he did not. I looked at the empty chair. Nora continued. Mrs. Carter is not asking the court to remedy heartbreak. She is asking the court to enforce documents, restore assets, preserve property, and prevent further concealment. Enforce, that word had become sacred to me, not revenge. Enforcement. Halden argued personal distress. He argued complexity. He argued that Daniel intended to cooperate. He argued that business records had been difficult to gather. He argued that Ms. Cole's pregnancy created unusual emotional strain. Judge Ellis listened. Then she ruled, based on evidence presented at this hearing and the prior hearing, the court finds Mr. Whitmore failed to comply with disclosure obligations, omitted material business interests, transferred funds for the benefit of a third party without consent, and attempted to delay proceedings despite proper notice. My heartbeat sounded loud in my ears. The court further finds credible evidence supporting Mrs. Carter's claim to reimbursement of separate property contributions, enforcement or valuation of her interest in Whitmore House development, and temporary exclusive possession of 18 Briar Lane. Nora's foot touched mine under the table. I did not move. Judge Ellis continued. The court orders continued financial restraints on relevant accounts, immediate preservation and production of complete Whitmore House records, appointment of a neutral valuation expert, return or compensation for personal property removed from 18 Briar Lane, and payment of attorney's fees associated with Mr. Whitmore's non-appearance and discovery non-compliance. Haldane lowered his head. The court grants Mrs. Carter temporary exclusive use and possession of 18 Briar Lane. Mr. Whitmore is prohibited from entering the property without written agreement or court order. Briar Lane my house, not because Daniel gave it to me, because I proved what he took. Judge Ellis was not finished. Dissolution may proceed uncontested. Financial issues will be resolved consistent with these findings and after valuation. Dissolution, such a clean word, such a violent mercy. The courtroom doors opened. Daniel walked in. His hair was disheveled, his tie was loose, his face was pale with anger, fear, and something close to disbelief. Again, a Northside Women's Clinic visitor sticker clung to his jacket. Again, he had arrived from Vanessa. This time, nobody shifted to make room for him. Judge Ellis looked at the clock. Mr. Whitmore, she said, you are late. Daniel looked from the judge to Haldane to Nora to me. What happened? No one answered at first. The silence was almost beautiful. Then Nora closed her folder. Everything, she said. Daniel did not understand at first. That was the strangest part. He stood in the aisle while Haldane pulled him aside and spoke in fast, low sentences. I watched the meaning reach him piece by piece. Financial restraints, attorney's fees, exclusive possession of Briar Lane, neutral valuation, preservation order, third-party transfers, equity claim. Each phrase changed his posture. He began upright, irritated, ready to take control. Then his shoulders tightened, his jaw loosened, his eyes moved toward me, then away, then back again. By the end, he looked less like a man betrayed by his wife and more like a man reading a contract he should have read before signing. I collected my files slowly, not to provoke him, because I no longer rushed to make Daniel comfortable. He came toward me when court adjourned. Nora stepped in front of me immediately. Any communication goes through counsel. Daniel ignored her. Emily, this is insane. I looked past Nora. No, this is documented. You cannot just take the house. I did not take it, I proved it. His face flushed. It is not final. It is enforceable. That word hit him too. He looked around. Richard was speaking quietly with Claire. Haldane was packing documents with the briskness of a man who wanted to be somewhere else. Court staff moved around us with bored efficiency. No one was waiting for Daniel to lead. He had lost the room, so he reached for the old weapon. I was at the hospital, he said. Vanessa had bleeding. For 1 second everything in me stopped. I hated him, I did. But there was a baby somewhere inside this wreckage, innocent and unseen. Is the baby okay? I asked. Daniel blinked. He had expected accusation, not concern. Yes, he said. They think so. Good. I meant it. Then I walked away. He followed me into the hallway. Emily, wait. Nora said my name softly, warning me not to engage, but I stopped on the courthouse stairs because I wanted Daniel to hear one thing from me. Not from a lawyer, not from a judge, not from a document. He came down 2 steps. The morning sun hit his face, exposing every tired line. You are destroying my life, he said. No. I stopped letting you use mine as materials. His mouth tightened. You think you are innocent in all this? No. That surprised him. I continued. I ignored things, I explained things away. I let you make me smaller because I thought that was the price of keeping a marriage. I am responsible for staying too long. I am not responsible for what you did while I stayed. For a moment, he had no answer. A black car pulled up at the curb. Vanessa sat in the back seat wearing oversized sunglasses. She rolled the window down halfway. Daniel, she called. We need to go. Her voice was sharp, not frightened, impatient. Daniel did not turn. Vanessa looked at me. Are you happy now? I looked at her through the open window. No, I said, but I am free to become happy. That is enough. Her mouth parted. Daniel whispered, Emily. I walked past the car behind me. Vanessa's voice rose. Did she get the accounts frozen? Daniel, answer me. The accounts, not are you all right, not what happened. The accounts. Daniel heard it too. I knew because he did not answer her. By afternoon, Whitmore Development knew. Court orders have a way of moving through private networks faster than gossip when money is involved. Daniel's affair had been embarrassing. His asset concealment was dangerous. Investors did not care who he slept with. They cared about undisclosed liabilities, internal valuation inconsistencies, and court-ordered restrictions tied to company records. Richard called me at 4. I stared at his name on my screen until it almost stopped ringing. Then I answered, Emily, he said, I owe you an apology. Yes, I said. The bluntness created a pause. Then Richard said, I believed Daniel's version. Yes, I should have asked for yours. Yes, another. Silence. I also should have known more about the company records. Yes, he exhaled. The board is placing Daniel on temporary leave pending internal review. I closed my eyes. I had imagined this moment many times. Daniel exposed, Daniel held accountable. Daniel losing the polished control he wore like a second skin. It felt less like joy than oxygen. That is not my decision. I said, no, it is a consequence of his. Then say that to him. I will. I almost hung up. Then Richard added, Claire told me what she gave you. I waited. I am angry, he said, but not at her. That mattered more than I wanted it to. After we ended the call, I sat at my small kitchen table with my hands around a mug of coffee gone cold. For months, I had told myself that if Daniel suffered enough, I would feel whole. But wholeness did not arrive through his collapse. It arrived in smaller ways. The court order in my bag, the apartment key in my pocket, my name on my design proposal, my phone silent because I no longer answered him. That evening, Claire came over with takeout noodles and a bottle of cheap wine. Do you have glasses? She asked. 2 mugs. Perfect. We sat on the floor because my furniture delivery had been delayed. Claire opened the containers. Mom is furious. I assumed. She says you humiliated the family. No, the family records did that. Claire smiled faintly. Dad is quiet. That sounds dangerous. It usually is. She handed me chopsticks. Vanessa called Mom crying. Apparently Daniel told her the financial freeze would not affect her apartment. The rent failed again. I looked down at the noodles. That is not my problem. No, Claire said. It is not. We ate in silence for a while. Then she said, Lucas posted something online. I did not look up. About Vanessa. I asked. Not by name but enough. Do I need it legally? Nora probably already has it. Then I do not want to see it. Claire studied me. Really, really. But it might feel satisfying. For 10 minutes, I said. Then. It would live in my head. I am trying to evict them. Claire lowered her chopsticks. You sound different. I thought about that. No, I said. I sound less edited. 2 days later, Daniel left a voicemail. I listened only because Nora needed relevant communication preserved. His voice was hoarse. Emily, Vanessa lied about some things. I do not know how much yet. I know that does not excuse what I did. I know I hurt you. I needed to talk to someone who knew me before this. I saved the voicemail. Then I closed the file. Someone who knew me before this, that was the cruelty of it. He wanted the woman who knew him before the consequences. The woman who believed his better self was trapped under pressure and grief and family expectations. I was trying to know myself after him. I did not call back. The next week I returned to Briar Lane with a locksmith, Marisol, and the court order. Daniel had not been inside since the ruling. That did not mean he had not tried. The security system showed 2 failed access attempts at the side gate. I sent the logs to Nora at the front door. The locksmith asked, You want all exterior locks changed? All of them. Marisol stood beside me holding cleaning supplies like weapons. When the door opened, the house smelled stale, not ruined. Waiting, I walked through the foyer slowly. The walls were still the color I chose after testing 11 shades of warm white. The floors still caught the light. The staircase still curved toward the landing where I had once hung garland in December while Daniel took a work call and told me to keep it simple. The dining room wall was bare where my charcoal cityscape had hung. I touched the empty hook. Marisol said softly, We will get it back. Maybe. If not, we find better. I smiled. Maybe. We worked all day, documenting missing items, photographing damage, opening windows, removing 2 boxes of things Vanessa had left in the guest closet, including a scarf, a receipt from Northside Women's Clinic, and a lipstick that rolled under the bed when Marisol pulled out the storage bins. Marisol held it up with 2 fingers. You want this? No. She dropped it into a trash bag. That was how Vanessa left my house. Not with a confrontation, with a receipt and a lipstick in a trash bag that night. I slept at Briar Lane for the first time in months. Not in the primary bedroom, not yet. I slept in the front sitting room on a rented air mattress, wrapped in an old quilt Marisol brought from her car because she said houses liked someone breathing in them. At 3 in the morning I woke to silence. No Daniel coming home late, no phone buzzing with lies, no waiting, just the old house settling around me. For the first time in years, silence did not hurt. The final divorce judgment took 3 months. Not because Daniel fought well, because he fought emotionally. There is a difference. A good legal fight has structure. Daniel's had pride. He changed lawyers once, then tried to argue that the equity agreement had been informal, that the home equity line had been used for business purposes, that payments to VC consulting were legitimate, that my personal property had been moved by mistake, that his failure to attend hearings had been caused by genuine medical distress. Each argument arrived dressed in expensive paper. Each one met a record. Nora dismantled the informality claim with signatures, emails, and internal valuations. Samuel Price dismantled the business expense claim with metadata and missing work product. Marisol dismantled the mistake claim with testimony about movers' instructions and dates. The court dismantled the attendance excuse with service records and Daniel's own messages. Vanessa did not attend the final hearing. Her attorney produced limited records after 2 court orders and 1 warning about sanctions. The records confirmed enough: payments, rent, car lease, medical bills, retail purchases, no meaningful consulting work. Daniel requested a prenatal paternity test through his own counsel near the end. I learned that because he tried to reclassify some expenses as potential child-related support rather than improper transfers, the result was sealed. I never asked. People expected me to want to know. Claire knew, Nora probably knew, Daniel definitely knew. I did not need that answer. Whatever the result, Daniel had chosen Vanessa's appointment over our hearing. He had chosen her rent over my home. He had chosen her comfort over my clarity. He had chosen delay over disclosure. He had chosen himself most of all. No test could rewrite that. On the day we signed the final agreement, Daniel arrived early. That alone told me he had changed, though not in a way that mattered to me. He sat across from me in Nora's conference room, thinner than before. His suit perfect but his face not. There were lines around his mouth I did not remember. His hair had grown slightly too long at the sides. His eyes moved to my left hand, found it bare, then moved away. Nora sat beside me. Daniel's new attorney sat beside him. The agreement was thick. Briar Lane remained mine, subject to refinance. Completed through funds Daniel owed under the settlement. My equity interest in Whitmore House was bought out at the neutral valuation. With penalties for non-disclosure, he reimbursed traced marital funds used for Vanessa's expenses. He paid attorney's fees tied to non-compliance. My personal property was returned where possible and compensated where not. The charcoal cityscape came back damaged. The main photograph did not. The blue throw was gone. The dining chairs returned with scratches. It was fine. Things could be repaired, replaced, or released. I cared more about the clause Daniel hated most. No confidentiality provision would prevent truthful legal, financial, or court-related disclosures. He had tried hard to bury that. Nora had smiled and said, "Absolutely not." Before signing, Daniel asked for 5 minutes. Nora looked at me. I nodded. The attorney stepped outside but remained visible through the glass wall. Daniel looked at his hands first. That was new too. "I do not know what to say. That will not sound useless," he said. "Then do not say anything." A painful smile crossed his face. "You never used to be this sharp. I used to soften myself for you." He absorbed that. "I thought you would wait," he said. There it was, the whole marriage in 4 words. I thought you would wait through dinners, wait through lies, wait through Vanessa, wait through humiliation, wait through court, wait through another woman's pregnancy, wait in the hallway while he arrived late with a visitor sticker on his jacket. "I know," I said. His eyes reddened. "That is what I cannot forgive myself for. Daniel, forgiveness is not my department anymore." He flinched. I did not enjoy it. That surprised me too. There had been a time when I wanted him to hurt exactly as I had hurt. I wanted him awake at 3 in the morning, staring at ceilings, replaying sentences that cut too deep. I wanted him embarrassed, exposed, abandoned in public. But by the time he was sitting across from me with red eyes and a pen in his hand, I mostly wanted the meeting over. That was freedom too, not needing his suffering to feed my recovery. He said, "I did love you." "I know." He looked up, hopeful despite himself. I continued, "You loved the life I made possible." His face collapsed. "Maybe at first I did not know the difference," he said. "Maybe. Is there any version of us where—" No, the word was soft. Final things do not always need to be loud. He closed his eyes. I signed first. Emily and Carter. My hand did not shake. Daniel signed after me. When the last page was complete, Nora collected the documents. Daniel remained seated. I stood. "Emily," he said. I paused at the door. "What will you do with the house?" I thought of Briar Lane in morning light, the arched doorways, the blue bathroom tile, the dining room wall waiting for new art. The front rooms where clients could sit with coffee and fabric samples while sunlight moved across the floor. I am turning the front rooms into my studio, I said. The rest will be mine. His face changed at the last word. Mine, not ours, not his. Mine. I left him in the conference room. 6 weeks later, the sign went up, Carter House Design, black letters on a brass plate beside the blue front door, small, elegant. Mine. I had the wedding ring melted down, not into a necklace, not into earrings, not into anything that would touch my skin again. The goldsmith mixed a small piece into the brass screw cap that held the sign in place. A former promise turned into hardware. It was not romantic, it was useful. Marisol came to the opening wearing a red dress and carrying flowers from her garden. Claire came with champagne. Lydia Hobbs came with 3 potential clients and a bottle older than my marriage. Nora sent white roses with a card that said only one word, proceed. I laughed when I read it. For a while, people asked whether Daniel tried to come back. He did, not dramatically, not like the rain-soaked night at my apartment, more quietly, emails on holidays, a handwritten letter on what would have been our anniversary, a voicemail after the baby was born, his voice breaking as he said life had become complicated and he finally understood what loneliness meant. I saved what Nora told me to save. I answered none of it. Vanessa moved out of Harborline after the payments stopped. Her LLC dissolved before the end of the year. Evelyn resigned from 2 charity boards after the divorce filings became an embarrassment in the circles she cared about most. Richard stepped back from public life. Claire left the family foundation and started graduate school. Daniel kept working eventually, but not as the man who could walk into any room and expect it to adjust. Consequences did not destroy him, they simply introduced him to gravity. As for me, life did not become perfect, it became mine. Some mornings before clients arrived, I walked through Briar Lane with coffee in my hand. I touched the banister, the restored mantel, the edge of the dining room wall where new art now hung, not because the house proved I had one, because I knew what it had cost to stop losing. One afternoon, nearly a year after that first hearing, a young couple stood in my foyer arguing gently over tile samples. The woman apologized, embarrassed. We are being ridiculous, she said. It is just a bathroom. I smiled. It is never just a bathroom. She laughed, not understanding that was fine. I hoped she never had to. After they left, I locked the studio door and stood on the front step. The brass sign caught the late sun. My name glowed back at me. Carter, not Whitmore, not wife, not the woman who waited, just me, and for the first time in years that was more than enough.